Hey everybody, it's Tim O'Brien. Welcome to another edition of a Facebook Live presentation on what it takes to be the person to see with your target audience. I'm really excited today because I want to talk about business development, and specifically I want to talk about why most business development systems fail. And there's three principal reasons. The first reason is no sense of urgency. The second is your database is filled with a lot of suspects, not prospects. It's like a garbage pail. Bunch of different kinds of people mishmashed all together. And the third is people don't know how to maintain contact. And that is the key to business development in this day and age. Staying in touch with people, staying top of mind. So when there's a need for services, you are the first person they think of. So super excited to cover those three topics today. Before we do, just want to welcome you. If you're tuning in from outside the country in particular, give me a shout out. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're inside the country, also want to know if it's the first time you're tuning in. If during the course of the presentation you have any questions or comments or anything like that, do me a favor, just put them in the comment section. Love this to be interactive. I do not have a corner on the market for all ideas. It also can be constructive feedback. So love to hear from you if you're just tuning in or if you've been watching these on a regular basis. Lastly, guys, if you have not already, you want to go to thepersontoSee.com/5 steps. I've got an awesome ebook there for you. Awesome. Free, absolutely free. Walks you through the 5-step process for creating a great personal brand. Same kind of process that Nike and Under Armour and big corporations take their spokespeople through when they're going to decide what part of their brand are we going to promote. So if you're serious about personal branding, go to thepersontoSee.com/5 steps and download your free copy. Okay? All right, let's jump in here. The number one reason why most business development systems fail, above all else, is a lack of sense of urgency. You know, my wife, when I ran my Rainmaker U program, she would say to me sometimes, because I would get so discouraged if people who had paid a lot of money to be there didn't show up. Or, you know, people didn't do their work. Because I knew what I was teaching worked. And it's not because I was a genius or I invented it, right? I just know from watching other people apply the information and get great results that I knew if everybody applied it, they could get great results. So I just get super frustrated. And my wife finally said to me, she said, "You care too much." I was like, "How could I care too much to my clients?" She said, "You cannot want it more than them." You know, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and she's right. I can't want you to be more successful than you want to be. Everyone has to burn inside your gut. You know, in America, in 1984, I think it was, Ronald Reagan ran against Walter Mondale, and Mondale lost. And he was a great politician. He was a great American, a great guy. And but he lost. And the reason he lost was because he didn't have the fire in his belly to want to win. And that was not because I said so, or I say so in retrospect. Prior to that, in 1976, he made a comment about, because he was a guy who was being considered to be a good nominee, and he made a comment. He said, "You know, you have to have that fire in your belly to want to be president, and I just don't have it." And he wasn't saying anything bad about himself. He just said, "I don't want it that bad." And so eventually, you know, people pushed him. You got to run, and he did. But he knew. Right? He knew. And so what I would say to you is you want to think of your goals in the same way. Do you really want them? Do you really want to be successful at business development? Do you have to be? Do you have a family that you have to provide for? Do you have certain things you want to buy, certain places you want to go, certain things you want to experience, all require you to be successful in business? And if you have that burning desire to make those things happen, you're in good shape. But if you're just sort of dabbling a little bit, you're going to be in trouble, because business development is not for the faint-hearted. So the very first thing you have to ask yourself is, do you have that sense of urgency? You know, a little tool I use sometimes is, let's say it's a Saturday afternoon, I'm kind of lounging around a little bit, and there's something that has to get done in my business, right? And I've got my children. I love spending time with them, and my wife. I love just being with her. And, and so sometimes I'll just be sort of a little lazy. And I ask myself in my head, how badly do you want it? Do you really want it? And it's funny because I guilt myself into getting up, or I motivate myself into getting up and doing what needs to get done. So I'll do that a lot. Let's say I'm lazy and I'm going to sleep in late. And it doesn't mean I don't sleep in late sometimes. I do all the time. But let's say I need to get something done. I need to get up early. And I'm laying there in bed and I just say, I'm just kind of tired. And then I ask myself that question. And if the answer to the question is, yes, I want it really badly, it's easy to get out of bed. Easy to get out of bed. So ask yourself that question. How badly do you want it? Because if you don't want it that badly, if it doesn't burn in your belly that you have to have it, you're going to be paddling against the current. Okay, so that's number one. I would love to know what you think about that. It's a tough one because you have to do some introspection. And I would love to know, have you done any introspection on that? What tools do you use, to determine if you want something bad enough? I'd love if you would just share that. And, maybe you've even passed through that and conquered that. That challenge. And if you have, I'd love for you to share that strategy so others who are watching and looking at the comments can see, what your response is or what your ideas are as well. So really would love if you would just, share with me a little bit on your successes in those areas or those challenges. Number two, right? What I said is your database is filled with a lot of suspects, not prospects. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Before I do, just want to remind you, if you're tuning in for the first time, give me a shout out. Let me know where you're tuning in from, especially outside the country. Number two is if you got any questions or comments, in addition to what I talked about or anything that's on your mind that you think I can help you, I'd love for you to share that with me. And number three is just a reminder, go to thepersontoc.com/5 steps, thepersontoc.com/5 steps, and you want to download that ebook. It's an awesome, awesome resource. I'm telling you right now. Super unbelievably resourceful ebook that's going to take you through the process of how to create a great personal brand. It's not going to create it for you. You're going to have to do the work, but it's going to show you how to do it. So if you're serious about branding, if you have a sense of urgency about branding, go to thepersontoc.com/5 steps. I want to tell you something interesting. 85% of all people that buy a book never crack the cover. You're like, what? How could that be? You just pay money for a book and you don't crack the cover? I know, people have the best of intentions, but life gets in the way. They're in love with the idea of reading. They're in love with the idea of learning. But 85% of people that buy a book, believe it or not, don't even crack the cover. It's amazing, right? Anyway, just wanted to share that with you. Okay. Now, what I also want to talk to you about is that database, right? And I could go on and on about this, but I just want to share a couple of thoughts. Most people's databases are filled with a mishmash of people, right? What they do is they go in and they just put a name in Outlook, and then they get a vendor name, put that in Outlook. Then they get the best client, they put that in Outlook. And then they put a best friend and they put that person in Outlook. And they just sort of mishmash it together. So it really just becomes a garbage pail of contacts, right? When you think about it, how could you possibly mine for gold when you don't even know where to mine? If people are just sort of thrown in together. The key to business development is to segment your database. Now, what that means is, for me, is I organize it in Outlook. I have different categories, right? I have clients, and I break those clients down to in certain categories, whether it's keynote speaking, one-on-one coaching, product sales, in-house seminars, corporate clients. I break them down. Then I have a section where it's prospects, people that are interested in my services. Then I have a section for vendors. Then I have a section for friends and family. And then I have a residual section for contacts, which I guess is the garbage pail for me. But I will also tell you this, my database is clean, right? I don't have people in there that I don't know who they are. I don't have people in there whose email addresses are dead, right? My database is very current, and that's critical. And you can see how it's organized. And then when it comes time to market, I don't just send everybody everything, right? Very strategic. If I have a particular program of marketing, there's certain people I go to. If I'm raising money for charity, there's a certain people or a certain group of people I go to. You see, so my database becomes a weapon. I weaponize it so that I'm on offense. Here's a tool, if you don't know about it. It's called Klean, KLEAN.com, KLEAN.com. If you want to clean your database up, all you have to do is go to Klean.com, and you pay, and you upload all your contacts. And almost like a slot machine. And it spits out, and it says, you put in 6,000 names, these 1,200 are people that are interested. Or not interested, but these are people whose contact information, your email addresses that are correct. Think about that. How good is that? And I'll tell you from a personal experience, it can also be very humbling. So the nature of my business is I travel around the country and I speak to groups of people. So I'll have groups of 200, 100, 500. And so I amassed a pretty large database of several thousand people, right? Nearly 10,000 people. And so I wanted to, and I'd never cleaned my database, but my chief digital marketing officer, Travis Houston, said, look, you got to clean this up. You got to make sure that these names are good as we go out to the market and we start to market and sell your online platform. You got to make sure these are good names. So I did that. And it was very humbling. It cut my database in half, right? What it also showed was I didn't do a very good job making sure on an ongoing basis that these email addresses were current. So that was the first thing. Second thing is I do webinars. And I did a webinar called Creating $1 Million Messages, and super, super well received by the people that were interested in what I had to offer. Here's what I mean by that. I sent out a series of emails. And what I always have to include by law, but I also am very, very deliberate in saying is, if this is not for you, please unsubscribe. A huge chunk of people unsubscribed. At first, my feelings were kind of hurt. But then I was talking to Travis about it, and he said, Tim, it's okay. He said, think of those people. First of all, we're not going to delete those people from your system. They just don't want to receive as many emails about the products that you're selling that the other people do. He said, but you also have to think of it this way. How much money have you made off of those people? How many products have you sold to those people that opted out? And the answer was none. And he said, exactly. He said, they're not bad people. He said, they're just not people that you're targeting and going after now. So you want those people to opt out. So what you're left with is the core people that are basically raising their hand and saying, send me more information. So, once I got over the hurt, my feelings like, how could anybody not want to hear what I had to say? I realized what I did was I pared my database down to the people that really were interested in what I had to say and really hungry for my information. The other people aren't deleted from the system. They remain in my system, and I'll periodically reach out to them, or periodically maybe send them one email on something I'm doing because their attitude may change, right? I'm not going to punish them because they opted out. But you see what I mean about my database is now, it's gold. It's gold. And it's the, let's say, the lowest grade gold. But what the objective is to grow that database with exactly the same kind of people so it becomes the highest quality gold or platinum, right? That's what we're after, is to create a legion of fans who really love what we do, who want to hear what we have to say, and are hungry for the products that we have to offer. But most people just don't want to put that kind of effort in. Again, goes back to the sense of urgency. So you've got to make sure that your database is clean, KLEAN.com, that it's really clean. It's full of people that want to hear your message. Because when that happens now, good people in your database inspire you to reach out to them. All right, number 3. We talked about people don't know how to maintain contact, right? They don't know how. And so before I jump in, another quick reminder. Please, if you haven't already, go to, well, I shouldn't say you haven't already. At the end of this Facebook presentation, Facebook Live presentation, go to thepersontoseat.com/5 steps and download my free ebook. Gonna love it. Also, any comments, questions, suggestions? I'd love to know what you think about what I said, and in that section 2, I talked about segmenting out your database. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? I'd love to know how you organize your database so that I can learn from you and I can share your resources and your knowledge with my target audience, because it's all about, guys, one of the things that's awesome about the professional development space, everybody loves to share and help each other out, and so if you're in financial services, You might not get that kind of free sharing of information, or if you're a lawyer, same kind of thing. And I get it. It's a different kind of environment, right? It's more adversarial, not your enemies, but the free flow of information might not be the same as it is in the space that I'm in. But I'd love to hear what you're doing, your best practices. So tell me what you think about what I said, and offer any kind of insights that you may have. Okay, number 3 is how do I maintain contact? Here's what happens to most people. If they have a sense of urgency and they set up their database and they clean it so it's great and they're mining for gold, here's what happens to most people is life gets in the way. Business gets in the way. Execution of your day-to-day responsibilities gets in the way. I understand that. The key to business development today is maintaining contact with the right people on a consistent basis. The average person has to hear your message 6 to 8 times to remember you. To remember you. And remember, you've heard me say this many times before. 80% of all sales are made after the 5th contact. It doesn't mean the 6th contact you're going to get the sale. What it means is you're not even in the game to play until after the 5th contact. Now, here's the good news. Of 100% of the people that make the 1st contact, 25% stay in the game to make the 3rd, and only 10% make the 5th. Think about that, right? What that means is there's plenty to go around. It's not really as competitive as you may think. You know, Brian Tracy has a great line. He says, go the extra mile. It's funny, when you're out there, it's not much traffic. So my point is this. You've got to be awesome in maintaining contact. And here is the secret. The secret to maintaining good contact is knowing what you're going to send before you send it. And this is what I mean by that. Okay, let me put in the context of my distribution on a weekly basis of information. So I decide on my social media platforms. I have LinkedIn, I have Instagram, I have Facebook, and I have Twitter. And I decide beforehand, before it even begins, I say, okay, on Mondays, my information on my platforms is going to be on Mondays, productivity. On Tuesdays, it's going to be related to personal branding. On Wednesdays, it's going to be related to sales, Thursday, business development, Friday, motivation, Saturday, lifestyle, Sunday, preparation for the week. It takes a huge, huge, huge amount of pressure off of me. Because yes, I have to create the content, but I can create a content much more effectively and much more quickly when I know the subject matter of the content. It's kind of like when I'm speaking publicly. You know, I can always make a speech publicly. You know, I've done it for so long. But if I don't prepare, it could be good. It could be great. It's a hit or miss. But if I prepare, the chances of it being awesome have been upped exponentially. So what I do is I make my life easy because I create my lanes before the day begins. So the night before, I don't say, well, what should I do tomorrow? I know what I need to do. I need to create content on this subject. You'll get from me, if you haven't already, you want to go to my website, right? thepersontoc.com, scroll down to the bottom with the Person to See weekly reminder, and you want to put your email address in there. Every Monday morning, 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I send out a little, if you will, tip on something you should focus on for the week on personal branding to further position yourself as the person to see with your target audience. It's funny, it's probably the most well-received piece of information that I send out. Just that little tip, make it really, really simple. And on Tuesdays, I send out a video. On Wednesdays, I don't send out anything. On Thursdays, I send out a blog post. On Fridays, I send out another video. I go and record 25 videos at a time. I create 25 blog posts well before I'm going to distribute them. Why? Because I don't want to be overwhelmed on the day of trying to figure out what I'm going to send, trying to record, all those kinds of things, because it's never going to happen. So you need to think about beforehand, what are you going to do to maintain contact with your key centers of influence, with your key clients that you want to expand market share with, or maintaining contact so you make sure you build loyalty and they never leave you. The key to great business development, in addition to a sense of urgency, in addition to having a great database, is knowing before the day comes what you're going to send, so it's on automatic pilot. Okay? Those 3 tips. That's the 3 reasons why most business development systems fail. First, people don't have a sense of urgency. They talk a good game, but they don't really think it or feel it or want it. They're not hungry for it. Number 2, they really don't have a database that inspires them or motivates them to maintain contact. And number 3 is they don't have the first clue about how to maintain contact. So think of the inverse of that. Do you have a sense of urgency? Have you organized your database? Do you have in place the things that you want to utilize to maintain contact with your target audience? If you do, you're going to be a powerhouse of business development. Okay, last reminder, guys, if you have not already, go to thepersontoc.com/5 steps, download my ebook, get to work on your personal brand. Have that same sense of urgency that all the great people have. That sense of that I've got to have this now, I've got to produce this now. You will be blown away as you begin to transform your brand. You will be blown away at the impact you'll have on your target audience. People, what your goal is to get other great people to say great things to other great people about you, okay? And the way you do that is to build a great personal brand. Remember, you are your best bet. What are you waiting for? Go, download it. Persontoc.com/5 steps.